It's impossible to operate a small business or startup and not negotiate with employees, vendors, customers, and others. If negotiation sends chills down your spine, or you want to become a better negotiator, this video is for you. Now, I've negotiated with thousands of people for 13 years as an attorney and for the past 10 as an entrepreneur and small business owner. So here are my top 10 tips to help you negotiate better. Number 1, know your objective. Know what you want before you begin the negotiation. And you need to know your bottom line, what you absolutely must have to make the deal work for you. A successful negotiation is one that falls between your goal and your bottom line. And here's another trick that most people forget. What's your best alternative to the negotiated agreement? I call this Plan B. What will you do if you can't agree? Do you have other options? If you create a Plan B, you will always understand your bottom line because it will be slightly better than your best alternative. Number 2, prepare. The more you know about the other side, the more options you'll have during the negotiation. Among other things, try to assess what's important to the other side and how far they might go to close the deal. And you should understand when something is important to the other side. Finally, consider what will happen during the entire life of the agreement and negotiate over terms that protect you throughout the agreement, not just early on in the process. Number 3, never be intimidated. Small business owners and young entrepreneurs often get intimidated when negotiating with larger companies. Larger companies know this. They tell you they have form agreements, their legal teams won't let them negotiate, they have complex payment terms. Most of the time, it's untrue. If you allow yourself to be intimidated, you will have difficulty getting your needed concessions during the negotiation. Good preparation and a solid Plan B will help you negotiate on a level ground, and you will make the necessary concessions to make the deal happen, and so will they. And I'll give you an example. Crowdspring helps entrepreneurs and small business owners with logo design, web design, print design, naming, and other services. We work with many large companies too, including the Fortune 500. We always escrow funds at the beginning of a project, but large companies often tell us they pay vendors after 60 days. We politely explain our policies and tell them we don't make any concessions, even for large clients. And over the past 10 years, in every single case, every company has found a way to work around their own complex payment systems in 60-day terms. Number 4, pay attention to perception and emotion. The people are imperfect. We get emotional, we have varied goals and interests, and we look at negotiations from our own point of view. We rarely consider the other side. How the other side perceives your negotiating positions and tactics and your emotional responses will strongly influence how they participate and respond during the negotiation. So as best as you can, get to know the person with whom you're negotiating. Even the smallest details can help you. And most important, don't show emotion. Don't threaten, don't shout, don't slam the phone. Be calm, collected, thoughtful, and considerate. And it's easier to do if you know your next best alternative. And here are a couple tips that could help you. When you encounter particularly challenging negotiating points, provide verbal cues that help the other person know you're looking to solve the problem. So for example, you can say, let's put our heads together on this problem and see how we can help you with your margins and me with my limited budget. And the other thing you can do is study the other factors which you can control. So for example, if you're negotiating in person, sit next to the other person instead of across the table from them. Your body language reinforces your non-confrontational message that you want to work together to solve some of the sticking points. Number 5, be prepared to walk. There are times when you should walk away instead of negotiating further, particularly if the other party isn't yielding. I do this all the time, and usually the other party will come back to you and make the necessary concessions to finish the negotiation. Sometimes that's my strategy going in. If I've carefully researched the other party and know they need the deal and are simply bluffing, I'll plan to walk in advance. And at other times, the decision to walk is prompted by what happens during the negotiation, but I always know my best alternative. Number 6, clearly articulate your interests. You should never presume that the other side understands your interests or you understand theirs. Now, some people successfully create fake important interests so they could bargain them away during the negotiation and make the other side feel like they've obtained serious concessions. This tactic can work. I've used it very rarely because it could distract you, and sometimes you end up negotiating some side dispute that could compromise the actual deal. The best way to find ways to resolve problems and differences that occur in a negotiation is for both parties to understand the interests of the other party. Number 7, listen. Successful negotiators are nearly always great listeners who patiently allow the other side to articulate their arguments, deal points, and reactions. Try not to interrupt, and when you can, encourage the other side to talk first. Number 8, create multiple possible solutions. So one mistake people make during negotiation is to limit possible solutions to 1 or 2. When you have limited solutions, you have limited meaningful discussion. Think of this as a form of brainstorming. Rather than argue that a deal must be A or it must be A or B, work with the other side to identify various ways to solve the problem without figuring out which is the best. And then you can discuss. Whenever you can, make the other party's decision easier. So for example, if you could accept a number of different options, tell the other side and let them pick the one that works best for them. This builds trust and helps you later with the same negotiation. Number 9, make strategic concessions. Negotiation is a competitive activity and people like to win when they compete. That's why it's rare for one party to come out of a negotiation with a perfect deal. They have to make concessions along the way. So listen carefully when you discuss deal terms and get a feel for what's most important and what's less important to the other side. Look for areas that are unimportant to you but important to them and make concessions on those points. Don't just give up those points before you begin, but do consider them, concede them as you negotiate. Finally, number 10, confirm the points of agreement and disagreement. After each meeting where you're negotiating, if you didn't reach a deal or reach the deal, it doesn't matter. Verbally review what you covered and what you agreed about and disagreed about, and make sure that one party sums it all up in a written summary so that you leave no loose ends, because if you need to come back, you should know exactly where you stopped. Want more actionable advice on starting, operating, and growing your business? Click the link below to visit the CrowdSpring Small Business Resource Center.